So have you ever had one of those dreams where you feel like you're falling through the air and you're just desperately trying to grab on to anything and everything and there's nothing there to grab onto, and all of a sudden you see the ground coming at you and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna die, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, it was just a dream? That's basically what the last 18 months of my life have felt like. They've been crazy moments of terror and, despair, balanced with these nice, beautiful moments of hope and relief. So that's what it's been like journeying to myself. But let's start with Standard Meat. As Ben mentioned, we run the company together, and we've had a really incredible last 5 years. So I don't know if you're familiar with this amazing publication. I hope you notice how it's spelled, meeting place, right? We like to say it's kind of like the Forbes of the meat industry. At some point, I think we were calling it the Sports Illustrated, the meat industry, Vogue, whatever. You pick your publication. But anyways, we were very, very proud to be recognized because it was such a nice moment for us to stop and reflect and be proud of all of this work that we've just done together with our team. And we're so proud that we have the luxury of carrying on this legacy that is our family business. So Standard Meat was actually founded by our great-grandfather in 1935 in the heart of the Fort Worth stockyards. But we're actually fifth generation in the meat business because our great-great had meat markets in Dallas and Fort Worth. And if our names didn't give it away, right? Rosenthal, Blumenfeld, it's a mouthful. We're also Jewish, Texans, living it up in Fort Worth. And that brings with it its own set of burdens. Our amazing grandmother is 98 years old and still living, and she has some pretty ridiculous stories of clubs that wouldn't let her be members of, neighborhoods she couldn't live in. To think that signs like this existed in our father's childhood still sort of blow me away, right? And I bring this up just because being Jewish is such a big part of our heritage and who we are, not because we're incredibly religious, but just the culture that it brings with it, but then also, in a sense, the burden it brings with it. But let's journey back a bit here. Let's talk about this adorable version of myself, 4 years old. I'm told I was vibrant and energetic, and I had an incredible empathy for a young girl and a lot of confidence. But I don't remember this version of myself, and I've tried really, really hard, dig in and pull up those memories, and they just don't come up. But I do have one very clear memory from my childhood. So I was in 7th grade, and my friends and I decided that we were going to be cheerleaders, and we were so excited because they were the coolest, and we did all the clinics together and all the practices, and I remember the night before tryouts, we all slept together and did our hair and got all ready, and we get up to the gym, and I've been in this gym, a million times, but I remember stepping in by myself, and it just was so big. And my footsteps were actually, I could hear them echoing in my ear as I walked to the center to do my, routine and performance. And I remember walking out and thinking, wow, I nailed that, right? And then, as my kids actually call this the old days of the 90s when we, had to go back up to school to see if we made a team, right? To see the, teams posted by the gym door. So this year was the first year our school had tried to do something different. They were going to have an A team and a B team. It was like early helicopter parenting, no cutting thing, but kind of worse, right? Because no one was getting cut, but you had the stigma of you were either on the A team, which was really great, or you were on the B team and then you sucked and everybody knew it for the whole year. So I get back up to the school, and I remember finally making my way up in front of all the girls that were all trying to see the list. And I remember running my finger down that list, and that first list, all my friends' names, but not mine. I made the B team, right? And I remember I couldn't get home fast enough, and I get home and I'm devastated and ashamed, and I'm bawling, crying, right? And I remember sitting down with my dad in his office, and, he said something like, use this as a moment, this defeat, use it as something to overcome, right? You didn't try hard enough. It's okay. If you try harder, you'll do better. And all I heard was, you didn't try hard enough. You'll never be good enough. Basically, you suck, right? So now there's this new mantra in my head. You suck. you suck, right? Endless loop. But it also led to things like, you're too ugly, you're too fat, you're not smart enough. It was all the things, right? And I knew that I needed some way to protect myself from this horrible shame and embarrassment that I was feeling. And so I was like, okay, I need a new strategy. Like, what's my new winning formula? Well, like I think many of us, I just was like, well, I'm just gonna get all the gold stars and I'm gonna achieve and I'm gonna be good at everything I do. And if I work my ass off, everyone will love me, right? And it worked pretty well. I made all A's. I did eventually become head cheerleader, very proud to say. I was editor of my yearbook, and my most likely to in my senior yearbook was literally most likely to make sure that everything she does turns out perfectly. That is not a joke. I literally sent the page. I pictured Duran the other day, so he knew it was legit. So anyways, that pursuit of perfection followed me into college, where I also made all A's, except for one B+ in Jewish studies, which I think is hilarious and ironic. And into New York, right? So I moved to New York after school. I had this killer job in the fashion industry, because that's what you should do if you want to go into the meat business one day. And this is my darling husband, then boyfriend, probably 2005. We were so fresh-faced and looking good. And anyways, from the outside looking in, you'd be like, wow, she's a kick-ass life, right? Like, she works in fashion, she's got all the right clothes and bags and goes to all the right parties. But all that pressure and inner critic shit, right, that I had been putting on myself up until this point was starting to make me crumble on the inside. And I started having terrible panic attacks, and I would get these really bad migraines, and I'd have to take naps under my boss's desk because I had used all my sick days, right? And it got bad. And my then boyfriend said to me, Ashli, would you consider therapy? And I was like, hell no, therapy is for weak losers. But a few months after that, when things were still pretty screwed up, I was like, okay, what do I got to lose? Let's give therapy a go, right? So I find this little cute lady on the Lower East Side, and she'd crawl into her big Eames chair, and I'd sit on the couch, and I would just start crying, bawling, talking about my childhood and trauma and drama and my brother and sister and parents and all the stuff you do in therapy. And, she'd say interesting, tell me more, right? So it was pretty much just me talking. And, I would leave there and I would feel much lighter, right? I had a weight lifted off of me. But then the weeks would go by and it'd be time for my next appointment and I felt really heavy again, right? So it's kind of this endless loop of relief and then despair, right? Kind of like the last 18 months. So anyhow, I moved back to Fort Worth, and probably 2 years after I moved home, I was seeing a psychiatrist then, because now, of course, I was also on all the drugs. And the psychiatrist says to me at an appointment, Ashli, I'm retiring, and I don't know of any other good psychiatrist, so I'm just gonna give you your file, and you can just give it to your next doctor. And I'm like, I should definitely not open this, but who the hell's not gonna open it, right? So I open it, and it's horrible. Right? I don't remember what it said, but it was something like, we'll need lifelong medication and, indefinite psychotherapy. And I was like, well, shit, right? But anyways, I really didn't know what else to do, so I just stuck with it. And, 20 years go by. And then I meet this massive, awesome, kick-ass, badass businesswoman, Elise, who's sitting right here in front of me. And we're having one of our monthly breakfasts. We met through YPO, and we're, just trying to help each other out in the world, and telling her some of my stories. And she says, Ashli, I think what you really need is Stagen. It really helped me professionally and personally. And I was like, well, if it worked for this badass, then I'm in, right? So I immediately just sign up for the ILP. And I had an incredible experience, right? And it was almost like the ILP was offering me this beacon of light, this lighthouse, guiding a path for me towards growth that I didn't know it was possible for me or existed. And it was just an incredible experience. And I remember as it was winding down, I talked to my coach, Paul Andritis, and I was like, Paul, I'm not done. I don't know what to do. What do I do next? He said, oh, have you heard of the Advanced Leadership Program, the ALP? That might be really great for you. And I was like, all right, sign me up. Which this time I definitely should have asked more questions than I asked the first time around. I did have a Zoom with Vid, but I got off that call and I still had no no idea what the hell it was. But I knew I liked Vid, and I knew that I needed to spend more time with him, right? So anyways, the ALP is also called the Dragon's Gap, right? Like, I think this was in one of our videos yesterday. It's like ancient map makers would draw dragons in areas that were yet to be explored to be like, danger, be careful, only bring your ship here if you're really brave. And that's what it's asked of me, right? It's asked me to be like super brave and to explore these like deep, dark waters of my soul. And honestly, I don't know really what it is that works and why it feels so magical. I once heard the ALP described as weird shit that works. And honestly, that's like as articulate as I can get about the ALP. But like, to give you a little bit of like, why is it that I feel so safe and comfortable to share in a different way in this space than I ever have before? Well, I'll tell you this quick story. It was an early call, and it was the whole group on, and actually Coach Paul was a student in the ALP, so that's not intimidating at all, right? One of your coaches is now learning alongside you, and I remember he was giving this beautiful talk on comparing his life to a river, and it was twists and turns and calm parts and rapids and all this. It was beautiful, like art. And then he finishes, and Vid goes, "Ashley, is there anything you want to share?" And I was like, "Shit, Vid. First of all, I can't go after that. And secondly, like, I'm really struggling to focus on this call about focus because I'm really hungry and I'm tired and I might have had too much wine last night. And I get off the phone and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Like, why did I just say that to all those smart people? Like, I feel like such a moron, right? And a couple of days later, I'm on one of my coaching calls with my coach, Wes Rosacker, and he's like, "Ashley, your share was so beautiful." And I'm like, what in the hell? I said I was hungry. He goes, "No, I don't think you understand. Like, there's something so beautiful in like this honesty and like your willingness to just show up as you are. Like, there's some wisdom there. Like, there's a lot of maturity, and I don't think your self-image is caught up to that." So I was like, okay, wow, And for like whatever reason, like this feeling of acceptance and appreciation that I was getting from these people gave me the courage to start like digging into stuff as I'd never had before. And I like was even willing, like, can I question that mantra? Like, you suck. Can I question that? Maybe. So Wes and I start working together, and it's almost like these little Russian dolls, right? We'd like explore this one part of me, and it would pop open to reveal some other part, and it was, all my habits and my patterns and my protectors, and it was hard work, right? And I only like knew how to be the person that lived within that protection or that armor, right? Like, I only know how to be an obsessive perfectionist, Like, I only know how to have like a massive fear of abandonment and rejection, and like I don't know how to be without that, right? But I also know that this armor was starting to feel really heavy, and it was weighing me down. And maybe at 41 I didn't need the same protections that I needed at 11, but there was something about saying I did need that once in my life, and it's okay that they're there, and it's also okay to maybe shed them. So of course I did what any achiever would do. I read every single book, I did all this homework, and I worked, and nothing was happening, and I was like, what the hell? And Wes was like, no, that's not how transformation works. You have to be patient and just like lean into it. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know how to do that, right? I was like, can't you just fix me, right? Like, you guys are like gurus and Yodas, and can't you just fix me? And he says, oh, Ashley, maybe you don't need to be fixed, right? Maybe nothing's broken. Maybe all these little cracks, maybe that's what lets the light come through and makes you the beautiful person that you are. And it was, I don't know, something in the way we were able to work together where I finally was just like, hell, I'm gonna take a leap of faith, right? And I let go of one trapeze, and I was trying really hard to get to the other, and I have not gotten there. And I'd like to say it was like slow-mo, floating, beautiful, but I am falling, and it is terrifying, and it hurts. And I think my husband wishes I took that blue pill or just never even started going here, because I'm such a crazy person right now. And it's super disorienting, right? To like listen to your heart and not your head. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I'm so far outside of my comfort zone now, there's like no turning back. But also, there's no turning back because I know why I need to do this work. I was sitting with my beautiful 11-year-old daughter, Eleanor, and my son, William, who's 9, and I was telling them to just be their badass little selves. Hopefully I didn't say it that way, or my son would make me like pay $1 to them. But anyways, like, I was looking at them and I was like, you guys just are so awesome. Be yourselves, unconditionally love yourselves, and get out there and just live life. Because if you try to be someone else, then we all suffer because we don't get to enjoy the you in this little world that you get to be in, right? And then I thought to myself, man, I'm a hypocrite, right? Like, I can't love myself unconditionally. How can I ask that of my children? And so, I continue the work. But although I'm living in this middle part and it's hard and it's dark, I have glimpses of light, right? Like, as I was preparing for this speech and I was talking a bit about my relationship with my dad, one of my coaches was like, why don't you just sit down with your dad, right? And like have a conversation. Like, what did he see back in the day? And I was like, fuck no, I'm not gonna talk to my dad. I was like, for 30 years, I've been trying to make him really proud of me, and he's so proud of me right now, like this businesswoman and this wife and mother, and he is like, thinks I am amazing. Like, why the hell would I remind him of this shittier version of myself, right? But a couple weeks go by, and obviously that was the 11-year-old in me talking, and at this point I was like, maybe I could. I'm now coming from a place of being 41, and I sit down with him, and we have this beautiful conversation about, his stories and my stories, and that's just what they were. They were just stories, and it was so freeing and liberating, and such a monumentous moment in our relationship, and it was really beautiful, and I just encourage you all to have those tough talks, because they're so worth it, right? So anyways, here I am. I'm in the middle of this mess. I wish that I was this lady carrying her lantern, by herself. But sadly, I am incredibly dependent still on this community, really, on Stagen, on my guides to hold my hand and walk this path with me, right? Because I'm not ready to do it on my own yet. Although I have the moments of light, I have a lot of moments of darkness too. So I'll share this quote. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. So in the meantime, while I'm living in this middle space, I'm going to try really hard to just be and to enjoy and to be in the moment and to embrace this precious, beautiful, only life that I get to live. And hopefully one day I can pick up that lantern and I can carry it myself. And maybe if I'm lucky, I can even light the path for others. Thank you.